Should I just pretend to take my shoes off?
Yeah, he does. He does tweet. I'll put him back up. Apparently he's a Packers fan.
Gotta do one of these. Hey, look. Ooh, smells
get it.
bad. What's up, neighbor? See? I'm just changing the game. You didn't like it? It's kind of sacrilegious, I think. Howdy, neighbor. It's me, your friendly neighborhood, JD. I was gonna wear a cardigan for this one, but it's raining and I didn't want to run out in the rain. It's my car. Anyway, so I had to stop and think because I always get the name wrong. I always want to call the documentary name. This is based on a magazine article that came out in Esquire, I think in 1998, and it's about heroes. And this guy didn't want to, cover Mr. Rogers, but he did, and they ended up becoming great friends. So you take that idea and you throw a lot of drama in it. You throw all the drama, and then you've got this movie. We follow Lloyd Vogler. That's not his name. Vogler? Lloyd Vogler. Nailed it. Vogel. Oh, man. We follow Lloyd. He's got a kid. He's got a wife, but you can tell that there's something missing. He's having issues with his dad. His mom has died, and they're not really close, and he blames his dad for a lot of it. And he is this investigative journalist, as they all are, as every serious journalist is. And he's assigned a piece to write about heroes, Mr. Rogers, and played by Tom Hanks. He meets Fred, and they kind of start talking, and it's clear that this guy's not happy, so Mr. Rogers does his Mr. Rogers thing and tries to teach him and kind of show him about forgiveness and love and letting go and that everyone is special. And that's the movie. And spoiler alert, he learns it. A lot of this did not happen the way that it's in the movie. And this movie, it's an odd movie to me. There's a great documentary that came out last year called Won't You Be My Neighbor? And I don't think any other Mr. Rogers thing will top it. It's a beautifully made documentary, and it's emotional, and it covers everything about Mr. Rogers. And what this feels like is this movie feels like a really expensive reenactment from a documentary. Or if you were gonna watch it on TV, the life of Mr. Rogers, this is what they would hire an actor. It's just that this is Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks, let's just get it out of the way, he's fantastic. I love Tom Hanks. Sometimes it does feel a little bit hokey, like he's doing this weird impression, because Mr. Rogers is a very quirky person, and it's kind of odd seeing Forrest Gump and Captain Phillips and Sully being Mr. Rogers. So
the guy from Cloud Atlas.
The guy from Cloud Atlas, the guy from The Burbs.
Joe versus the volcano.
Dude, if we don't do a Joe versus Volcano episode soon, I'm gonna lose my mind. Love Joe versus Volcano. One of my biggest issues is the way it's all framed. It's clear that they took this story that seemed interesting, on the surface, because it's an interesting story, and they realized, wow, Mr. Rogers isn't in this story a lot. And so they kind of try to find ways to bring Tom Hanks back into the movie, and they do that through the way that the movie is framed is like it's an episode. So we start out, Mr. Rogers walks in, he sings his songs. He's pretty much telling you the story, and he's opening up these pictures, and you see the dude's picture in there, and he introduces them, and it's just weird stuff like that. And then they also do, every time that it transitions to a new spot, like whether it's Pittsburgh or New York or New Jersey, it does it through the miniatures, like the iconic, going through the town and, the great opening of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. But it does that, and I'm just like, it's gross. I don't like it. It's just, it takes you right out of the movie. Like, the most interesting parts are the drama between the main character, Lloyd, and his father, played by Chris Cooper, and then this kind of other father figure in Mr. Rogers. And I'm not saying make up a story about Mr. Rogers and just be done with it. It just, every time that it kind of did something like, hey, you seen Mr. Rogers before? What about this? There's this thing that Mr. Rogers did where he asked everyone to be silent for a minute, a whole minute. Think about all the people in your life that have helped you get to the spot where you are now. And it's a beautiful, sentiment, an emotional moment, and it's such a good moment, and the documentary just encapsulates it so perfectly. And they do it in this movie, and it's supposed to be that kind of turning point for a character. And they're in a restaurant, they're talking, he asks them to do it, and then everything goes silent, the whole restaurant, as if like the restaurant can hear everything Mr. Rogers is saying, even though the dude, like, it's not very loud. Tom Hanks looks straight at the camera, as if to ask the audience, like,
Now you?
you're doing it right. Silence. And I'm like, but we're already in a movie theater. It's supposed to be silent. Like, I don't. It's just so. It's like as soon as he looked at the camera, I was like, there are emotional, heartwarming parts, but it wants to be like it wants to say something. But we've already said all of it about Mr. Rogers. I mean, no one is arguing that Mr. Rogers was not a great person, except for, we won't name him, but you know who you are. You know. If you really want to learn about Mr. Rogers, and you really want to be moved by something, you should watch the documentary, Won't You Be My Neighbor? Mr. Rogers really is someone who should be, like, studied and commended and really just looked at, and the things he did in society were huge, but now we're like, hey, Tommy Hanks. It's like they made it's weird. It's like someone wrote a book, the documentary, and someone made a movie about it, and they were like, let's cut all most of the stuff out, and let's cast Tom Hanks. It's like the movie's like I don't know, it just feels yucky, and there are good parts to it, but it's just just watch the documentary. That's all. That's it. I'd give it about six sweaters out of 10. Watch it. I would not. I mean, this movie's gonna do huge on Thanksgiving, but just I'm thankful that I've seen the documentary. So there we go. Are you gonna hit the button? Un esercito di prodi. Hey, look.